Robots are horrible. I have a Roomba upstairs that doesn't understand chairs. It's mainly my wife's fault because she got chairs. They're not like leg chairs. They have like the bar on the bottom, right? It's a full. So the Roomba goes over it, and then it gets stuck over it like a speed bump.
Yep.
And can't figure out what to do, which is dumb because it's rear wheel drive. Turn it to 11.
It's rear wheel drive.
Wheel drive. Rear wheel drive. It's been a long week, and I just had lunch, and my mouth is a little dry, and I'm not doing myself any good by drinking iced tea and bubbly water on the pod. I got yelled at for calling it the pod, by the way.
Really?
While we were in Utah, both my wife and Melanie Curtis, who has been on the show before, was like, "Stop calling it the pod. That's not cool." And I was like, "Fine. From now on, I'll just call it the cast." And they were like, "That's better." And I was like, "It's way worse."
So you survived ACEs.
Been a near.
If you're running an MSP and ever feel like you're constantly putting out fires, I've got some exciting news that could change the game for you. It's the Eureka Growth Program brought to you by Gozinta's Eureka Process, a sponsor of all things MSP. And it's specifically crafted for MSPs at every growth stage. Imagine having a C-suite of advisors right at your fingertips, guiding you through everything from hiring to handling mergers, boosting your service delivery, and even planning your exit strategy. That's what this program offers. And let me tell you, it's like having a powerhouse team behind you, making sure that you're always ready for the next big opportunity. So if you're looking to elevate your MSP game, check out the Eureka Growth Program. You can sign up for a call with the Eureka team or shoot them an email if you have questions. Go to atmsp.link/Eureka to find out more.
You want to try that question again?
So you survived ACEs.
I did. For whenever this goes out, last week was the official ACES conference, and I did survive. However, the big boxes I ship all of my equipment in did not. I got one back, and the wheel has been jammed into the Pelican box, so now I have to go get a new Pelican box for next year. It's not a real Pelican box either, so it doesn't really matter. So these things are cheap, and these things have lasted 9 years, so worth it. Yeah. Survived.
Like the signs?
Huh?
The
signs were 7. Yeah, the signs also broke. This year, it's funny. Like, everyone's like, "We're so glad to be back in person." I'm like, everything's falling apart. No, it was awesome. I did survive Utah, and then the next couple of days, I took a day or two off while we were there. Michelle made me go on a hike. It wasn't really a hike. It was a trail around a lake. Not even a lake. It was a trail around a creek. And I complained about it the whole time because I just felt like annoying her. And so every time I talked about it for the rest of the weekend, I was like, "Yeah, Michelle made me go on a hike." And then you hear from the background of any phone call, "It was a trail!" Like, it was just her. It was her getting mad. But it was great. There was amazing speakers and great sponsors and a great community. And like, the feedback we've gotten from people has been, an outpouring of greatness, and which is annoying because I want to know the things I did wrong so I can fix it for next time. I get it, and I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate everyone being like, "Oh my God, Justin, you did so much work, and thank you so much for bringing the band back together," or whatever. I need to know what didn't work so I can do it, so I can fix it for next time. And I never really get that from anyone.
So on my to-do list, I'm putting down send out a survey.
I sent out a survey.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I send an exit survey at the end of the show, and all of it's like, "You're amazing, Justin." And I'm like, this really helps, like, my mental state.
You're asking the wrong questions then.
No, the question I asked was, "Do you think I did amazing?"
And see, that's why you're not getting the right answers.
Still dying.
This coughing break brought to you by Liquid Death, hashtag not a sponsor.
So for those who didn't come to Ace's conference, when Eric does get around to posting some pictures, I actually went and, because we do it at a wedding venue, and I went and I bought soda at Walmart the night before, which was great because Fred Barriere, who's now in the All Things MSP Facebook group, thanks for joining.
Yes.
He went out to dinner with myself and Fred from my team and another guy, Ty, the night before, and we took him to Walmart. He'd never been to Walmart before. We took him to Walmart because we were going to buy sodas for the show. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I also bought a case of Liquid Death for just you and me, right? No one. I even told them, I go, unless it's Eric Anthony or me, no one else can have these. So we had a case of Liquid Death while we were there. So Fred had never been to Walmart before, and he's like, what is this place? And we're like, you can get anything here. And he's like, anything? And we're like, anything. And so he's like walking around like in amazement. And the best part was like, we found one of those, those like squeaky chicken toys, right?
Yep.
And I go, hey, have you ever seen one of these before? And he's like, no. So I squeezed it and I put it in his hand closed. And I go, don't let go. And he opens his hand a little bit and you just hear, and he realizes what it is. So he like slowly, and you're going to have to go to youtube.com/ or at All Things MSP to see what I'm doing here. But he puts it down slowly in a basket. And then he just he opens his hand, he walks away, and the four of us are walking away, and you just hear, and we're just cracking up laughing at a Walmart. And he's like, this is amazing. And I was like, yeah, don't bring this to France. This isn't, they don't need this in the French Alps. But yeah, all in all, pretty good. Like I said, thanks to you and the All Things MSP community for sponsoring the dinner. We had a delicious, I can't believe I get to say I had a really good pizza in Utah.
Yeah, I know. It was really good. And of course, it was more than just pizza. We had the appetizers. Those were a nice touch as well. Yeah. And then dessert, I didn't have any dessert because
it was gelato. I actually got them to do like a chocolate strawberry mix for me. And someone who was there, Mr. Andy Espo out of Boston, was like, this is the best gelato I've ever had. And I was like, you need to go to Italy, son. But it was really good. No, don't get me wrong. If you're in Utah, Settebello Pizza on Pierpont Avenue or 200 or 300. I don't know where I was. Everything was a circle there. But yeah, really good, really, really solid food. You know what's weird is the maps of Utah are different. I was talking to you about this. Like the map of Utah does not do it justice, because when I'm on the phone with people planning, they were like, "Oh yeah, the hotel is like right behind us, like or right around the corner." And it wasn't. It was like a 20-minute walk, right? And but the problem is every time I would drive, it would take me even longer because one, we went to Starbucks every morning, and two, it's all one-way streets. So then I go look up the dinner place, and like the dinner place on the map looked like it was 5 blocks away. It was literally across the street from where we were, right? So there's a lot of like Utah's weird, man.
And I mean, Justin, I will say the hotel you picked was a beautiful hotel, and it was a gigantic room for $175 a night. Okay.
Yo, you were in were you in the tower or were you in the motel?
I was not in the tower. You
were in the motel-y part. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And the room was as big as I think it was junior suite that I had at the Bellagio in Las Vegas one time.
Bellagio now or Bellagio when it first opened and it was good?
Well, recently, I think it was in the last 2 years, and it was in the tower on the conference side. So,
okay, yeah. I know you're right.
But I know better. I know better than to do this. I know better than to book in the conference hotel as a Marriott fanboy.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in this case where the venue was not in the hotel, and there was an AC and a Residence Inn and like 3 other Marriott properties closer than the hotel that you picked. And I'm not dissing on your hotel because the problem was the map, not, the
problem. And also so this is my problem for the hotel. When you plan these things from so far in advance and you're not actually there, it's hard to tell. But the hotel Wi-Fi was absolute garbage. And the place we stayed in was called the Little America. The Wi-Fi name was Little America Guest. But the T was capitalized, and there was no password, and there was no captive, and there was no, like, it didn't ask for a room number or anything. And I called down to the front desk being like, what's your Wi-Fi? And they're like, it's called Little America Guest. And I was like, with a capital T? And they're like, there's no T in Little America. And I was like, first off, there's 2 T's in Little. Secondly, there's a T in the word guest, which is what I'm questioning. And, and she was like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, are you not on the Wi-Fi? She's like, no. And like, I was like, this just looks, and like, and then I saw, because I happened to have been on the 17th floor in the main tower. And like, there were other Wi-Fi's like 1721 B dot living room or like whatever. And I was like, this is a horrible setup, and they can definitely use an MSP to fix this. So the last day before we were leaving on Saturday, I wanted to grab some stuff to watch on for the airplane. And I noticed under the desk in the room, there was like a little Aruba Wi-Fi access point, and it wasn't attached to the wall properly. Like the lock screw broke. I promise you, I didn't break it. It was already broken. And it was connected to a Polycom phone. So out of the Aruba was a 4-wire connected to some sort of adapter to an 8-wire to make this Polycom work. And I was like, okay, well, if this has internet, let me figure it out. So I plugged my laptop into all the other ports on the Aruba, did not get an IP address, took the Aruba off the wall, took the main wire that was going into the Aruba out, plugged my laptop directly into that, did not get an IP address. I was like, I don't know what magic bullshit is making this thing work right now. Either they have it like MAC address locked or something, so that way only the phone network worked. But the one thing I didn't try was actually plugging into the back of the phone to see if I can get something. But yeah, their Wi-Fi was like 3 meg down. I did get complaints about that from people. Like the Wi-Fi in the hotel was crappy, and I'm like, I don't know if you know this. I don't own the hotel.
Yeah, but it was sketchy from a security standpoint as well, right? I noticed that I didn't use the Wi-Fi at all while I was there. My phone hotspots pretty well, so I didn't have to worry about it. Plus, I wasn't uploading a podcast or anything, so, no 20 gig files being uploaded.
These podcasts are not 20 gigs.
I beg to differ. Maybe not 20. Most of them are probably not 20.
Before you answer that, if you let's take a poll. If you're listening to this, post on the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/all-things-MSP. How big of a file are Eric's podcasts? We'll see what happens.
And keep in mind, size matters.
I didn't want to say.
Okay.
No, don't tell anyone. They have to wait till next week.
Okay. So I think we have an interesting from the group episode or segment for today.
Was that you freezing to do the? This is a good one from David Lee. This is a county agency near me that was ransomwared recently. That sucks. They are still working through that process. They do not have IT, and the head of the agency has been trying to look after the IT needs. There's a county agency without IT. My question is, how eager would you be to take on a customer that is just coming out of a cyber incident? I feel like now would be an easy sales time since there's an obvious need. This could also be a good opportunity for my smaller but growing MSP. I'm just slightly concerned about coming into an org that was just breached and what can blow up on me in 2 months later, if that makes sense. Is it the time to swoop in and take advantage of the obvious need? And the answer, David, is yes. Because you have them on what's called the emotional tilt, right? In my opinion, you 100% can go in. You have to be careful, obviously. And what I would do is go through what caused the initial ransomware. Now, you can go in and fortify your base level stuff. Does everyone have 2-factor? Do we have a secondary? Is it not done through text, it's through OTP? Is the firewall up to date? Do the network needs to be replaced? Do some basic stuff just to get them like to a degree, and then kind of really dive into why they got breached in the first place. Because you need to understand what caused that in order to be able to figure out what to make sure you block in the future. Now, if this was a phishing attempt that went through and that's what caused the breach, great. To get them, set up with, know before or ID agent and get them phishing training and schedule lunch and learns with them, things like that. Is it a network breach? Okay, whatever you put in that you just put in to like get them baselined out, you need to up that up and put in a more powerful firewall with IDS and IDP and all those other things. But this is an easy one, especially because, like I said earlier, they're on the emotional tilt, right? Sales are made on the emotional level of things. When I do my sales process, and we talked about this before in another episode, my 3 calls are, nice to meet you. Tell me everything that's going wrong. I want to hear all of your pain. I'm going to tell you I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to sticker shock you. And the third one is like, I can solve it, and it's going to be less than what I priced you at because you're going to be emotional about it. That's what I'm talking about here. You could absolutely get in on this and do something. And Eric's giving me a look like he's going to tell me I'm wrong.
No, the funny thing here is you are such the visionary. I am such the integrator. So I look at this from a completely different point of view. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I look at this
from a
completely different point of view.
No. What you're saying is, and I'm going to be you for a second. I'm not saying you're wrong, Justin. I'm only saying that I'm right.
No, I'm literally, I mean, yes, I've done that before and we will continue to do that because it makes it interesting. But no, so I actually commented on this post, okay? Mm-hmm. And I said, yes, number one, they need help. Mm-hmm. But you need to qualify them, okay? Do they have the funding to purchase your offering? Do they fit in your ideal client profile? And by the way, there's a sneaky piece that's not in the original post, but it's down in the comments that makes it very specific. You may not be able to do this customer, by the way, and I'll reveal that in just a second. And then, do they have a plan to get clean already? Or is that something that you're offering? So a lot of different things from my point of view that you need to look at, kind of discovery questions that you need to ask, in addition to the visionary Justin just, wanting to go out and get that revenue, which I think is a good thing. Now, there is something that the original poster reveals further down in the comments, however, that makes this a very tricky situation. And that is, this is not just a county agency. This is a police department. And so now you have CJIS compliance that you have to worry about. So if you don't know CJIS compliance and you can't get somebody to do that part for you, I would pass on this opportunity. It's a good opportunity, but if you're not equipped to handle CJIS compliance, this is not going to be a good fit for you.
And that's 100% fair, right? Obviously, I feel like I got catfished here because I was asked a question without all of the facts. This is why I said I'm not right, but I'm not wrong, but you're definitely right. Yes. Any sort of compliance for any agency, whether it's the police department with CJIS or anything, like, yes, if you are not capable of handling that, you have to say, I can only get you so far, and then I got to walk away, or you got to walk away from the very beginning. I, again, being the visionary, would then look at what do I need to do to become CJIS compliant, or who can I bring in from Taloris or Sandler and Partners to help a lot of this. But, I don't know what David's company size is or anything about his business, so it's a little tough. But if it's any of the 1 or 2 person, MSPs that usually are listening to this show, most likely you are not going to understand or be able to get behind CJIS compliance unless that is your bread and butter of a customer. There are definitely small MSPs that only do HIPAA, or things like that. So there might be a couple of you out there that do. I'm assuming that's criminal justice information systems. Is that what CJIS stands for?
I believe that's correct. I'm not an expert on it. I just know it exists.
I'd never even heard of this until 4.5 seconds ago. So I was set up for failure from the beginning. But yeah, that is. I would say that is a bit of a wrinkle, to say the least. Which is what you wrote. Is that a whole new wrinkle? It's more than a wrinkle. That is a origami folded towel on a cruise ship level of wrinkle to get that done. But David, if you are capable of doing it and you have a team that is big enough and you don't think that you'll get arrested the next time they get ransomed, go for it, man. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
and that's from the group.
Level up your domain security and email deliverability. Achieve peace of mind, reduce ransomware, reduce business email compromise, reduce email phishing and other attacks. Make DMARC a new revenue stream for your MSP. Becoming a managed service provider partner with EasyDMARC is an excellent opportunity for your business to boost sales and increase revenue. Your customers need DMARC, although they might not realize it yet. Your job is to let them know that their email infrastructure might be at risk of email spoofing and phishing attacks, and that you can offer them a simple solution: email authentication. Become the DMARC expert your clients need with EasyDMARC. Find out more today at atmsp.link/EasyDMARC. Okay.
So one of the things I did pick up while I was at ACES, and this is something we're going to talk about today, is technical debt. I want to get into this a little bit. And one of the things, now that ACES is over and I've completely cleared that off of my plate until October, that I want to talk, one of the things we're doing at Virtua is, yesterday we had all of the directors, plus Fred, on a call to just make a list of all the things that we have to audit and or fix. And so I don't have a good marketing name, but we're calling it Fix the Uckups June. This way you don't have to bleep me. And the reason that I want to do this actually comes from not only from ACES itself, from like 2 weeks before ACES, when I actually had Adam Borst, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago from Vista Business Partners, had him do a valuation of my company. And I know what my top line revenue is. And when I got the valuation, I got to say, I was a little pissed off because it was much lower than I had expected it to be, all things considered. And so we went through all of the numbers to figure out why it was where it was. And a lot of it is that we have to get our cost of goods down, right? We're spending too much and we're not making enough profit on a lot of items. And I'm including in here the 48 cents you get for every Microsoft license. So one of the things that we had looked at was we were spending, a certain amount of money with PAX 8 every month for Microsoft licenses. And when I look at what we billed out, there was only like a $500 difference over the course of 4 months. There's a mistake there. Now, it could have been a mistake on how I pulled that report, because we're also still in the transition of moving everything into Halo and getting out of FreshBooks. And we have a piece of data here and a piece of data there and a piece of data here. And some of our data still in Utah and whatever. But figuring that stuff out. And so that's why I set my team. I said, listen, this is what we're going to do in June. Now that I'm back. And so yesterday we made the list of all the things we're going to fix. This is what I call technical debt, because in there is, figuring out software we're paying for that we don't use, figuring out licenses that we're paying for that we're not billing for, finding machines in our MDM software that we're paying for that have been off for a year. These are the things that what happens is, I had an old employee who used to use the word cruft a lot. I don't know if it's actually a word or not. But it's what happens is, like, we as MSPs, we're always in the now, right? There's always something on fire. Today I got a client who's like, none of our Microsoft apps work. Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Or like, whatever. Which means if I'm working on that, I'm not working on trying to find those 10 machines that I'm getting billed. Because whatever, it's $20. It's not a big deal, right? But like over time, it adds up. And those 10 machines become 20, become 30, become 100. Not really that bad, but still, it can add up. Or I found that we had a client who we only sell them 3 Dropbox licenses and we bill them once a year. We don't hear from them ever. We haven't billed them in 2 years. We've paid for their Dropbox licenses. Now, it was $1,800 over those 2 years, and we caught it now and at least got 900 of it. But still, like, that's a stupid mistake, which really questions why anyone on the show listens to me. But for the record, I'm doing a presentation on imposter syndrome coming up at MacAdmins, Penn State University in July. And I'm basically just showing them clips from the show, being like, yeah, I don't do that either. but those are the kinds of things, these things that we have to work through. And I think it's very important, especially even in a 1-2 person business, to like, you got to break some time away to like work on this technical debt and get rid of it.
Yep. And by the way, when you suggested this topic today, I of course did some research because that's what I do.
No. I didn't think about it this today. I thought about this weeks ago. We plan in advance. Don't let them know. Don't let them know.
You were thinking about this for weeks in advance.
Don't pull behind the curtain. Don't show them behind the curtain. Yeah. Anyway, you said sorry. You did your research.
And because technical debt, a lot of people think of vendors and not necessarily MSPs, and they think of code debt, which of course does apply to some MSPs, especially if you write your own automations, you write your own scripts, right?
Yeah.
So you could have technical debt there. But actually, more interesting than that, as I was thinking about it, and as I was doing some research, I really came up with 4 that your standard MSP, regardless of size, is probably going to have some of this inside of their business. So one is infrastructure debt. That's the obvious one. That's the old servers, the old software, the old code, all of what we would traditionally think of as technical debt. Second is process debt, because things change over time. So if you're not systematically changing your processes to keep up with what's changing, you may have some process debt. And then the third one is security debt, which is obviously a big one now and not one that we had to worry about until the last 5, 7 years, 10 years. It's been a long time. So that's one.
You've gotten old.
I know, I have, right? And then the last one that I think everybody kind of has is knowledge debt. And this is the one that really surprised me and made me think. Because how many of us really do give our technicians time, and even our non-technician people time, to get better at their jobs and learn the things that have changed specific to their role in these jobs.
Yeah.
So, a lot more than just what we would think of as technical debt.
We went through our list yesterday, and it was like, make sure that like all the Backblaze accounts are correct and remove people who don't need to be there. But on the other side, it's also like, clean up our ClickUp, write a couple of SOPs that have been missing for a while. Mm-hmm. So like, I think all the stuff that the big 4 that you've talked about, actually one of our big ones, and this is, I don't need anyone being a keyboard warrior over this one towards me. One of the big ones that we have not done is like the Microsoft security score inside of your Office 365 portal. I was actually just talking to my friend Tim Pearson about this, because he's more of a Microsoft shop when it comes to email. He's still a Mac guy than us. We're more Google. But that Microsoft security score, like the default is like what, 26? Like, and I just looked at a random client and it was like, oh, it's 29. I'm like, oh, we should probably look at these things. And like, these are small things to do, to just bang them out, get them done. And we're being proactive in that regard. I mean, we're a little behind the time on it, but it is being proactive because the clients don't know about it. And if we're going to enable something like turn on the banner that says this is from an outside organization, all we have to do is send an email and say like, this has been turned on for you. You're welcome. Those kinds of things. I think there's a lot to be said in terms of this, in terms of debt, and despite what Rich Dad Poor Dad says, there really is no such thing as good debt, right? Like debt is bad, and especially financial debt. The amount of times I've seen that dude on Instagram and TikTok being like, debt is good. I pay for cars with debt. I'm like, no, you don't. What's his name?
Robert Kiyosaki?
Robert Kawasaki, something like that. Yeah. Screw that guy. Anyway, the point here is that the debt inside your business is bad, right? So if you look at you have to look at this in such a it's weird because you have to look at this from a macro and a micro at the same time, right? Because like that 30,000 view, that macro view is like, okay, where are all of the pieces that we need to deal with? Infrastructure, security, documentation, all this. And then you immediately have to go right down to like the ittiest bittiest micro and be like, okay, well, we're missing an SOP on how to configure, Microsoft Defender for endpoint on machines within this one client who have these weird security settings, because they're part of a mega corporation or something like that. And the biggest part about all this is that it takes time. It takes things up. You have to carve the time. And so for us, I've always, as much as I crap on Rich Dad Poor Dad, I don't really crap a whole lot enough on Gary Vaynerchuk. But one of the things that he's always said is like, as an owner, the buck stops with you, right? Like you got to eat dirt. I don't really know how much dirt he's eating at this point, but whatever. But I still do. And I know I do, right? So I told my team, look, we've made this list. I'm now going to review it and write out what I think as the owner should be these things that we're looking for. And then we're going to review that as a team. And then I'm going to go and do this because I have time. I'm not taking any tickets for the month of June. I have a team for that. I need to resolve that in my head and say, like, anyone who texts me, I go, send a ticket. Like, stop bothering me. I can't help you. I have a team for that. And I'm going to go and be like, I'm going to write a piece of documentation today. So I'm giving up like one bullshit task for another bullshit task. But writing that documentation, despite it being an annoyance at the time, is going to far exceed my company's, like move my company's needle much further than it would be if I was helping that one client at that exact moment in time with whatever fire, when I have an entire team that I'm paying for that can handle that part. Right? So there's a lot of figuring out whose time on your team is the most valuable for each job. And whilst, yes, maybe my dollar value doesn't equate to writing a documentation about the security settings of this one individual client or whatever, I know for a fact that in the long run, that one little document that I write, because it's in my head and no one else's, will allow my team to far surpass anything later.
Okay. Well, two things I want to say about that. Number one, thank you for alienating two of our, most famous podcast listeners, Robert Kiyosaki and Gary Vaynerchuk.
Hey, Vaynerchuk, if you do listen, hit me up, Justin.
No, but seriously, it's not just your value in terms of the time it takes you to do those things, right? It's what value are you adding to the business long term by getting those things done.
Yep.
The other piece that I want to say about that is for you to create the standard operating procedures, those process documents, whatever you want to call them, you are embedding your culture, the way you would do things, into those processes. And for a lot of us, I think that's why we got into this in the first place, right? Yeah. Because we had a certain way of doing it. People liked that way that we were doing it. And so we got this client base that is now grown where we need to hire more people. But if we don't learn how to replicate that process across our people the way we did then it's going to lose that specialness.
I think there's I agree with you, because actually I'm thinking about a client who wrote to me today who was like, they did a review of all their vendors, and for Virtua, they were like, we love Virtua. However, one of the things that they have a problem with us is that, like, it depends on who they get, we'll be able to resolve their answers faster. And like, my answer to that was like, not everybody's me, and I can't make everybody me. And no amount of documentation is going to make anyone me. God forbid there's another me out there. Side note, there is another Justin Esgar. He lives in Texas. He's like, I don't know, 9 years younger than, or maybe he doesn't live with his parents anymore, but he's like 9 or 10 years younger than I am. If you are in IT and your name is Justin Esgar and you lived in Texas, give me a call. But the idea of getting as much of that documented as possible, getting as much of that, and we've talked about this, it's the end of the earth. Like, use your PSA to automate things. The problem is, everyone comes to you and goes like, well, how do I do that? It's like, well, it's different for everybody, right? So you need to figure out your procedures, and it becomes this cyclical cycle, which a lot of us are tired of, like that rat race bullshit. Like we're tired of like the cyclical cycle of like, what do I need to do? I need to do this in order to do that. And then that thing could do this. And then we can make it automated, but I can't automate it unless like, all right, we get it. So like in this case, the cleanup task is going to get us on the right path, because I think if we can get to the clean, as an old CFO friend of mine used to say, he used to say baseline all the time. If we get to that baseline, everything can come from that. Because if I get everyone to that baseline, I say, this is the SOP for doing X, Y, Z, and we get that to that baseline, any SOP that needs to come after that is a lot easier to write than writing from below the line. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a lot of that is going into things for what we're trying to do. I'm actually going to switch over. I don't really like ClickUp. I know people do, but I'm going to go into our ClickUp, and I'm going to find audit plan.
Well, and while you're doing that, I want to mention a resource for people, because it's something that I listened to recently. I'm actually working through it as one of my study books right now, called Buy Back Your Time. And it is essential for an entrepreneur to figure out who and how to replace yourself with, and I don't know if any of that made sense, but you need to figure out who's going to do the work next and what work you should be handing off. And this book gives you a solid process for doing that.
Yeah. All right. So here's our big ones. Wrap up our DMARC DKIM audit. So we've talked about this before, that we sold back in the beginning of this calendar year, 2024, people on SPF DKIM DMARC, right? Totally makes sense. And we made money on it. And if you haven't done that yet, you didn't listen to that episode, go back, listen, learn how to make a couple bucks on this. However, the follow-up to that is who said no or didn't respond. And it'll be 6 months soon since we did that. Let's go back to all of those clients and say, hey, did you add any new services? And make that the new operating procedure to say every 6 months we go back and say, did you add any new services? But we want to make sure that those records are correct still.
Yep.
Right? That's a simple technical debt piece of cleaning up the past, making sure we have everyone up to date, and then proceeding for the future by following a certain set of rules. Our billing, so we're still building out our Halo. I feel like with Halo, you're always building it out. Like there's never, I don't think I found anyone who's just like, I've built my Halo and I'm done.
Well, and I don't think that's specific to Halo. I think that is generically applicable across PSAs.
Having only ever used Halo, I'll take your word for it, because I don't have the scope to talk about it. But like we finally got all of our connectors to like Pax 8, Ingram Micro, which by the way is called Cloud Blue. And a couple other vendors in there. And all of a sudden we got all of our subscriptions are pulled in, which is awesome. That's what Halo should do. I should be able to bill easily for my Microsoft subscriptions. What we don't have in there is our costs. It only has the extended price out for like what we charge people. So we have to go back. One of the big things I told our billing side of team is to go in and go put in all the costs so we can legitimately figure out how much money we're making on each one of these customers. One of the awesome things about Halo is right there when I sign in, I got a widget. Top 5 winners, top 5 losers, meaning how much I'm making per client and how much I'm losing per client based on tickets. Well, that information doesn't work if I'm not properly logging time for tickets, which we have to do, and properly putting in the cost for things so it can calculate that math for me, right? So my number one winner is somebody who bought $50,000 worth of hardware, but the cost shows up as 0 in Halo. So like it thinks we made $50,000 profit, which is not true. We made like $4,000 profit because Ubiquity is never in stock at Ingram. Which, side note, I don't know if anyone from the D&H company listens to this podcast, but let me tell you something about your Ubiquity pricing, because it is messed up. If the device says it's $499 on Ubiquity's website, you don't get to call yourself a wholesaler and sell it to me for $507. That's not how wholesale works. Okay, guys? That's ripping people off. This is why you have stuff in stock. No one buys it from you because your pricing is on the wrong side of wrong. On the right side of wrong? Whatever. I rant over. Another easy one that is like easy to bang out and super important for your team, we have it in Halo, but you can have it anywhere, is your supplier list and your contacts, because vendors are always turning over. You know how many new Kaseya reps I've had since January? So like we keep track of who the current hotness is in Halo. So if we have a problem, we know who to call. And I was going to make a Ghostbusters joke, but I couldn't pull it out. The new movie was pretty good. But it's in our Halo, and we have to keep that updated. And again, SOP comes down to is if you find a new rep, put it in and mark the other one as dead to the world or whatever. So like those kinds of things are in there as well. Consolidate all of our DNS. We have domains and this is more a me thing because we've acquired companies in different states and different things. I have domain purchases from GoDaddy, Name.com, Network Solutions, Cloudflare, and while the price is all the same, like I'd rather just have it all in one place.
Yes.
And that's time, right? That's just the time of like releasing and renewing and transferring tokens or whatever. But like it should all be in one place instead of me just getting random bills. Because the other thing is when my accountant saw, because we switch accountants, when my accountant saw our credit card bill, he just went, "What the hell is all of this?" And I was like, I actually don't know. And that was the wrong answer.
Yeah. So that is fixing your technical debt.
Yes. Infrastructure debt. We have a lot of clients who are still on Synologies and have distributed workforces because of COVID. I think that falls into infrastructure debt. Trying to get them to a cloud-based solution, whether it's Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, Ignite, whatever, like getting them off of a physical, at least 5-year-old Synology at this point. I have one client who's on a Synology. When we built it out for them, I mean, we're going on 8 years now. We built out this massive box. It was huge, and it had a backup, and it had a secondary backup at the guy's brother's company, which is in the Midwest with their own Meraki and this whole thing, and blah, 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 blah. And the problem that they've always had is that they have like 100 terabytes of data, 100 terabytes of data. And we were like, this won't fit in the cloud. But we finally got them to realize that like they don't need all 100 terabytes of it all the time. So one of the big things, unfortunately, we have to let the owner get involved and let him clean out what he wants. Let's get stuff out. Let's put stuff on the cloud. Let's shut this stuff down. Problem solved, right? Like that, I think is a big infrastructure debt because, Meraki will warranty your device as long as it has an active license and it's not end of life. And I don't think they've end of lifed the MX64, which was, I think, one of their first firewalls, but like it's got to be coming soon, right? So like getting off that equipment also, that's also another one. Also, if you have Sonic walls, get rid of them.
One of the things that I was thinking of, and this goes right into, the Synology, replace it with a cloud file solution type of thing that you were going at, basically putting anything in the cloud. Okay. Yeah. Not only does it give you the better scalability, right, which reduces technical debt, but it also transfers a lot of the technical debt from you, the MSP, to the vendor. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. The funny thing is that like if you transfer Synology data to the cloud, all you're doing is transferring it to someone else's Synology.
Not necessarily.
I mean, unless it's Backblaze and they built their own pods. But yeah, that's another thing. Oh, let's talk about tools, right? We were big fans of Watchman monitoring for a very long time. They were recently bought by Synchro MSP, I think a couple, like maybe 2 years ago at this point. And the product is in like, it's like in a vegetable state. It's like they're keeping it alive barely. They're just releasing some simple bug fixes, but word on the street is like they're going to crash it. Well, we've been paying for that for years, and we've been able to replace most of the alerting from that tool with another tool that we also pay for. So then why are we paying for two tools? Let's save ourselves, a couple shekels and shut it down.
And that's the other side of that coin, right? Yes, you're transferring the technical debt to somebody else, but at the risk of now, if somebody else doesn't live up and deal with their technical debt, it becomes your problem. So there is no right answer there. It just depends on how you want to run your business, which is what so much of this comes down to.
Welcome to ATMSP, where we don't give right or wrong answers. We just give you a couple of ideas and hope for the best. If you're the kind of MSP that doesn't play with the big companies that have investment, and you are like, no, that's not who I mean, there's a couple of exceptions, but like, if you're like, I'm going to use this like custom built thing, like, you need to know what you're getting into. And I think that alone, that answers that question, right? Like, because in reality, Microsoft's not going away, Google's not going away, right? Like, you want to put stuff in OneDrive, you want to put stuff in Google Drive, I think you're going to be okay. However, the tool you use to back it up might get messed up, because like, we use Backupify, and then it was bought by Datto, and then that was bought by Kaseya, and now we're stuck. And there's like a major API problem with it, and they won't fix it for us. And so now we're like, okay, well, who else can we go with? Because technically Backupify, which is owned by Kaseya, has all of this backing. It's not going to go anywhere, right? Until Kaseya kills it and moves it into some other part of their software. But if we go with another company, some smaller company, to do email backup, like, who's it going to be that's going to be as well backed financially as Kaseya? Yeah. So, you got to play the odds a little bit, which the house always wins whenever you play odds. I think like that's the hardest part of one of the hardest parts of doing this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's a lot of examples of how that has played out in the past, with vendors just dropping products unexpectedly and all these other things. And what, I mean, besides having an infinite number of backups, so you spread the risk across different vendors, which becomes costly, right? Yeah. What is your answer? Because there is a level of risk that you need to protect yourself from. And, which again is also why you need to have good insurance.
I was thinking about this, like, can you imagine if like you're like, I'm gonna back up your email in 5 different places, but you're gonna pay for it. Like, the client's gonna be like, no, back it up in one place. And it's like, well, there's risk there involved, right? That's another one of those things where I guarantee you, anyone who does email backup in any way, shape, or form, you're probably backing up email accounts that don't exist anymore, and you're paying licenses on that. You don't even realize it, because like Backupify auto archives suspended users in Google, not suspended, deleted users in Google, but not suspended users. So you're backing up an email account that is not even actually active, and you're paying for a license for that, which again, it's $1.40, $2.50. Like, it's not that big a deal. But when you scale it out and you have 600 users plus to deal with, you're going to lose a chunk of change every year. And like that, going back to what my original reason for doing this, is cutting into my business valuation. It's cutting into my margins. It's cutting into my profit. I can't grow the company when I'm losing money on wasted licenses, not billing properly, all of these things, my staff not working as efficiently as possible. If I can't make that stuff work internally properly and not make that profit, the company's not going anywhere, right? Because profit is what you need to grow. And, it's not about putting the profit. I'm not even talking about putting it in my pocket. Like, I'm talking about literally keeping the money in the company to be able to hire another person, or to actually buy another tool, or to move, to do that stuff. You have to be able to like increase that stuff. And it all starts from inside. So take a day or two and like go through your stuff internally. And I talk about like taking a day or two a lot. Like, stop answering tickets, hire someone to answer tickets, and you work on this stuff. Look inwards and see what you can fix. That's it.
Cool. And I want to say one thing before we kind of wrap it up here.
Yeah.
And that is that you have technical debt, but guess what? So do your clients. And when it comes to technology specifically and that technical debt, even though it really includes a lot of different things that we've talked about, that's something that you can charge them for. You can charge them for managing their technical debt. So look at it not just as something that's a pain in the neck for you to do, but also something that you can potentially turn into a service that you can now offer to clients and actually profit from.
The best way to figure out their technical debt is get some sort of shadow IT monitoring going, and then you could just go back to them with a list. So you can actually hit them two ways. You install something that does shadow IT monitoring like Avanan. Then you go to them and say, hey, you have licenses for Dropbox and Box and OneDrive and Google Drive and SharePoint and whatever the hell the WebEx version is called. And you don't need all this and you're spending all this money and I'm going to save you money, but I'm going to take you do it. You know what I would suggest for anyone who's questioning how to charge for technical debt? Do it the same way all of those apps that like save you money on your recurring bill. I'll save you money, but I get a percentage of what you save. And they'll be like, okay. Because if you don't save them anything, you don't get paid. And if you get 10% and you save them $1,000, that's $100 a month in your pocket. You did a little bit of work.
So
that's the
my only issue,
you should price it.
Yeah. So my only issue with pricing it that way, though, is that you may find things that are not necessarily things they're paying for. Like there may be a whole bunch of personal Dropboxes or personal OneDrives being used in their business, which doesn't make it a financial risk or issue for the client, but it certainly makes it a cybersecurity risk for the client.
Did you lower their premiums for their cyber insurance? Get a percentage of that.
Okay, you had to think of something.
Of course I do. That's what I do. That's my job here as the host of the All Things MSP podcast. Thanks for listening to another great episode. Follow us on all of your favorite podcasting tools. Leave a review. Check us out, facebook.com/groups/allthingsmsp, youtube.com/@allthingsmsp. We have a Patreon somewhere, patreon.com/allthingsmsp. Subscribe, join the group, be a part of the pirate brigade. I think that's what it's called. If not, it is now. That's it. That's Eric. I'm Justin. Bye.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, but better yet, go ahead and join the Facebook group. You can also follow us on Instagram if that's your thing. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel @AllThingsMSP to catch us in all of our video glory. And last but certainly not least, if LinkedIn is your thing, you can follow us there as well. And a special thank you to our premier sponsors, SuperOps, MoveBot, Gozinta, EasyDmark, and Comtech. And we also want to thank our vendor sponsors. The All Things MSP podcast is a BizPow LLC production.